Evelyn, don't like her playstyle. Soldier still feels infinitely better and more solid to play. As a man, it is important to understand that you can and will be wrong sometimes. No, not about that. This is an apology video for Miss Chevalier. I was wrong about literally everything about her, and she is probably the most fun I've had with ZZZ since I pulled my Jane Doe. This character is probably the most well designed, both visually and in gameplay. She's honestly on par with Miyabi if I'm being real with y'all. And this video is going to be the follow-up to my previous video regarding her team synergy with Ben. Before we get into things, be sure to leave a like and drop a sub if you want to see more Ben Bigger content. Without further ado, let's dive into it. Now, this isn't going to be a flat out Evelyn guide, so I will expect people watching here to at least know the general idea of what she does. I will still give a brief summary. She is a chain attack DPS. She can build up a separate meter that, when full, allows her to do a chain attack without needing to be in the stun phase. She also has this cool tether that comes with a neat little effect. When she enters her binding seal, which is when she tethers an enemy, she gains 25% crit rate at core passive F. I'm going to talk about her with her personal W engine since I have it, but for the free-to-play players, you can resort to using the Micardo's Desired engine to follow the same example. Assuming you have her engine and passive maxed out to F, her ratio is about 46% crit rate and 50% crit damage before you even add any disc to her. Now, the most reasonable thing to do is to give her a crit rate piece on slot 4 and then give her a woodpecker set. Wrong! This character actually has a problem with over-capping her crit rate, so instead you want to slot in something else. A normal crit ratio should be around 80-160 for most DPS agents, but considering how many characters can buff crit rate and crit damage in this game, it's actually wiser to run Eevee on a crit damage piece on slot 4. You do need to be lucky with your crit rate subsets though, as a solid 20% across all disc pieces should be fine because that leaves her at around 70. And because you're not focusing too much on the crit rate after that point, you're given all the free range to work on maximizing crit damage and attack percent instead. Now that we have a basic understanding of Evelyn, let's talk about how to slot this bear into teams with her. But first, why would Evelyn want Ben to begin with? Ben's additional ability, when paired with another fire agent, grants an additional 16% crit rate to users who have the shield that comes from his EX skill's follow-up attack. This allows you to focus less on crit rate substats and more on offensive ones for Evelyn. For example, let's say that your Eevee has a build that gives her 75% crit rate. With Ben's passive, that brings that up to a whopping 91%. And seeing as you only need to swap in EX skill, it doesn't matter if you counter or not, you still get the shield, and then swap out, that's a free 16% crit rate buff, which lasts for 30 seconds. This is great and all, but it still comes with a very big and fluffy caveat: running Ben in the first place. While Ben does work with Evelyn, if you want the absolute best for her to reach her true potential, this bear isn't going to cut it. He sadly doesn't provide enough to warrant replacing a prominent stutter like Lighter or Evelyn's girlfriend Astra. But what if you don't have one of these units? What if you have both? What if you have neither of them at all? I'm going to cover all the best possible teams for Eevee and Ben, and I'll go over the pros and cons about each of them. Eevee already covers Ben passive, but Ben does not do the same for her in return. So we need to find a stunner or support who could proc Evelyn's additional ability, because the 125% increase to the ultimate and chain attack damage is pretty insane to pass up. We have 4 potential candidates here, so let's talk about each one. Our first free-to-play option for an Eevee Ben team is going to be Lucy. Luciana is a great support in general, often being run in place of Astra if you don't have her. Ben and Eevee both get her passive online, and a passive that is indeed. Not only are these cute little goons funny to look at, but they also are pretty deadly, especially since they inherit literally everything from Lucy when her passive requirements are met. This paired with her weapon and 4-piece astral makes for a very healthy Evelyn when it comes to those damage numbers. But there is still a demerit when running Lucy here. Any team where you're going to be replacing the stunner with Ben as a makeshift is going to suffer significant DPS losses due to taking forever to stun enemies. His crit rate buff is great, but what's the point if you're barely in stun phase for most most of the fight. This team comp would have to have Evelyn on 2-piece pen with a pen ratio disc 5 in order to make up for the lack of stun time. The same could be said for the Sister Sisters team with Evie, Ben, and Astra. However, Astra does make things a little bit less grim. Miss Yao needs no introduction here. The buffs and effects she provides are nearly unmatched. Ben's quick assist, although short, is also very good for building up some extra days. If you can combo an Evie chain attack into quick assist, Ben counter, and get the EX follow-up, that's a pretty solid chunk of days meter filled already. Again, the obvious drawback here is no stunner, but I think that what Astra brings to the table by turning Ben into an AoE days unit is still definitely something. With both support options out of the way, let's cover our stunners next. Yes, we're tossing away Evelyn's beautiful asset and forcing her to work at Bellabog Heavy Industries, Coleta being a unit that most people watching here should have. You either have gotten her from your 300 pull selector or eventually lost a 50-50 to her. Now, this team is pretty inoffensive, and it was pretty much the same as my Soldier 11 team in the beginning of the game. Coleta is a very fast stunner, and having access to a broken move that deals a shit ton of days with Ben is also very good for Evelyn. Coleta's additional ability also helps out too, seeing as it buffs chain attack damage. However, this is only during the stun phase, so Evelyn can't make use of this ability when she chain attacks outside of that period. This team is pretty good, but we can definitely do a lot better, and that is where Lighter comes into play. Lighter is easily the best stunner in the game right now and is by far the best option if you want to run Evie and Ben on the same team. The fire res down, the fire damage increase, the increase to the stun timer, the sheer amount of DPS and days this character brings to the table, what is there not to love about him? Evelyn, Lighter, and Ben are by far my go-to teams for the weekly bosses and Shiyu defense, seeing as I can use Ben to free up a slot to place Astra elsewhere. The same can be said for Deadly Assault too. The downside being no support to buff Evelyn is pretty irrelevant when Lighter is consistently stunning bosses every 20 seconds. So if you're one of the few people who missed out on Astra but still want to make the most of your Evelyn and have Lighter, this bear is the one for you. And that is it for this video. A little bit of a short video than usual, but I am planning to make a definitive Bang Boo guide as my next longer form CCZ video. Be sure to keep your eyes peeled out for that one. Leave a like below if you enjoyed and subscribe if you want to see some more Ben Bigger content. Join the Discord if you want to come see me crash out over some Marvel Rivals from time to time, and support me on Ko-fi or become a member if you'd like. Ko-fi members get access to my videos early and members get shouted out at the end of my videos. But with that being said, I'll catch you guys later. Bye-bye.